The great hall of the alien council was filled with light from giant crystals hanging above. Hundreds of alien nobles sat in silence, their strange eyes glowing in the dim air. At the center, a human soldier stood, hands behind his back, looking calm but tense. His name was Marcus, and he was the only human inside this place. The aliens had brought him forward after long whispers, pointing at him as if he was some rare animal. Their leader was a young princess with silver skin and bright golden eyes. Her beauty was dangerous, her voice sharp. When she finally rose from her high seat, the hall turned completely quiet. Her eyes locked on Marcus, and she said with a spark of curiosity, "Twice its size? Prove it, human." Gasps echoed across the chamber. The aliens shifted in their seats, some laughing, others whispering. For them, this was entertainment, a challenge that would either humiliate the human or destroy him. Marcus kept his face still, but inside his chest, his heart pounded. He knew that in this alien culture, failing to answer a royal demand was not an option. But he also knew this was not just a joke. Her words carried a hidden meaning, a test designed to see if humans were worthy of standing among them. His eyes flicked around the room and saw guards tightening their grips on their spears. The air smelled of burning incense, heavy and suffocating, but he could feel the weight of dozens of alien eyes pressing down on him more than the air itself. The princess leaned forward, her smile sharp and teasing. "What is wrong, human? Do you not understand? Or are you afraid?" Her voice carried across the hall, making her nobles laugh softly. Some aliens whispered that humans were weak creatures, always hiding behind machines. Others wondered if Marcus even had the courage to face her challenge. Marcus said nothing for a moment. His silence made the tension thicker, until one alien noble stood and sneered. "He will not prove anything. He is afraid of our princess. Humans are small, fragile things." Marcus raised his head, his voice calm but strong. "You want proof? I will give you proof. But once I show you, you will not forget it." The crowd hushed. The princess's eyes sparkled brighter, full of excitement. She waved her hand for silence, and everyone leaned closer, waiting. She had not expected the human to answer with such confidence. Most beings quivered under her gaze, but this one stood steady, as if her words were fire that only made him stronger. Two guards stepped forward, tall insect-like warriors with armored skin and sharp mandibles. They crossed their weapons in front of Marcus, ready to strike if he made a false move. He looked at them, then back at the princess. For a second, it seemed like he would refuse or stay quiet, but instead, he slowly raised his hand. From his belt, he pulled a small metal cylinder, no longer than his palm. It looked harmless, even weak compared to the shining alien weapons around him. Laughter broke out in the hall. "This is his proof?" someone mocked. "A little toy?" The princess did not laugh. She leaned closer, her golden eyes wide with focus. Marcus pressed a button on the device, and at once it began to shift. Metal parts expanded, gears clicked, and energy hummed like thunder trapped inside a bottle. The cylinder stretched, growing longer and longer until it was double its size. The glow inside it pulsed with a strange blue light that painted the floor. The laughter in the hall died. Even the guards froze, staring at the strange human weapon. It was alive with power, and its size doubled again as if it could keep expanding forever. The humming sound filled the chamber like a deep growl of some ancient beast. The princess's lips parted, her smile fading into awe. She whispered, almost to herself, "Beautiful," the nobles murmured nervously. Some looked afraid, others furious. "Trickery," one shouted. "This is forbidden technology." But no one dared step forward. Marcus held the weapon steady, the glow reflecting off his serious face. He did not look proud or arrogant. He looked calm, as if this was nothing unusual for him. His eyes met the princess's, and for a brief moment, they both stared at each other in silence. She was testing him, but he was testing her too. Was she ready to face what humans really were? The silence was broken when one noble slammed his hand on the railing and shouted, "Kill him now before he unleashes it!" Guards moved forward quickly, their spears aimed at Marcus's chest. The princess raised her hand, stopping them instantly. Her voice was calm but filled with command. "No, he has answered my demand." The guards froze, confused, but they dared not disobey her. The princess stood tall, her silver skin glowing in the crystal light. "This human has shown courage," she declared, "and something more. He has shown power none of us expected." The chamber filled with whispers again. Some nobles looked furious, others curious. Marcus slowly deactivated the weapon, shrinking it back into the small, harmless cylinder. He clipped it back to his belt and stood tall, his eyes never leaving the princess. The princess's lips curved into a smile that was neither cruel nor mocking. It was curious, playful, and dangerous all at once. "You have proven it, human," she said softly, her eyes shining like molten gold. "But this is only the beginning. I will see how far your proof can go." The words sent a ripple of unease across the hall. Marcus knew this was not the end of the trial. It was only the first step. The princess had set her eyes on him, and in her gaze was both curiosity and hunger for more. He could feel the trap tightening around him, but also a strange chance, an opening for something greater. His heart beat hard in his chest, not just with fear, but with the thrill of what was coming next. The hall echoed with whispers of danger, and the future of the human and the alien court was now tied together by a single demand that could not be undone. The council chamber was still filled with whispers after Marcus had shown the strange device. The nobles leaned toward each other, speaking in low voices, their eyes flashing with fear and curiosity. The weapon had doubled in size before their eyes, glowing with energy like a living storm trapped inside metal. For a moment, no one knew if it would explode, cut through the air, or summon something worse. The silence that followed was heavier than stone, and Marcus could feel the weight of their stares pressing against his back. He kept his posture straight, hiding the unease burning in his chest. He knew very well that showing the weapon was only the start, not the end. The princess had not moved from her throne. She sat tall, her golden eyes locked on him. Her lips curled into a small smile that carried both interest and danger. Her voice, calm yet sharp, sliced through the murmurs. "So it is true. Humans carry hidden weapons. Small at first, but they can grow, expand, and change." She leaned forward, her elbows resting on the carved arms of her seat. "But a device can be stolen. A machine can be broken. A weapon is not enough. I must know if the one who carries it is worthy." The nobles roared in agreement. Some slapped their clawed hands against the stone benches. Others hissed and clicked their teeth. A tall noble with green scales stood and shouted, "Yes! Let him prove with his body, not just a tool. If humans are more than weak animals, let him show us with his own strength." The princess did not look away from Marcus. Her eyes glimmered with fire as she raised her hand for silence. The chamber obeyed her instantly. "You heard them, human," she said in a soft, commanding tone. "A device proves nothing without the courage of the one who wields it. You will face a true test." Marcus's jaw tightened, but he did not speak. He had expected something like this. Aliens were not going to be impressed by a simple display of technology. They wanted to see his limits, his spirit, maybe even his death. He thought of the guards, their eyes filled with anticipation. They wanted him humiliated, crushed in front of their princess. And maybe, deep down, even the princess wanted to push him until he broke. But when Marcus looked at her, he saw something else in her expression. Excitement, curiosity, almost childlike wonder mixed with sharp cruelty. She was enjoying this game, and he had no choice but to play it. With a flick of her hand, the princess gave an order. The crystal floor in the center of the chamber shifted, groaning as heavy stone plates slid away. A circular pit opened in the middle, wide enough for a small arena. The nobles leaned forward, their faces lit with hunger for spectacle. Chains rattled beneath the floor, and two gates slammed open. From the shadows, two alien gladiators stepped into the pit. They were giants, nearly twice the size of Marcus, their skin armored with natural plates that shimmered like steel. Each carried a weapon taller than Marcus himself, a blade fused with bone and metal. Their steps made the floor tremble, and their eyes glowed with rage. The crowd cheered, chanting in their strange guttural voices. "Crush the human! Break the human!" Their voices shook the chamber. The princess lifted her hand, silencing them once again. She looked down at Marcus with a cold, expectant smile. "If you are truly more than a fragile creature, human, you will survive. Step into the arena and show us your worth." Marcus felt the blood rush in his veins, but he did not flinch. Slowly, he unclipped the cylinder weapon from his belt. The guards stiffened, ready to strike if he turned it on them, but he ignored them. He pressed the button again, and the device expanded, humming with the same energy as before. The light it gave off cast blue shadows across his face, making his eyes burn with determination. Without waiting for permission, Marcus stepped forward and dropped down into the pit. The sound of his boots hitting the arena floor echoed like thunder. The gladiators snarled, their massive jaws opening wide, sharp fangs dripping with saliva. They circled him, weapons raised high, eager to end him quickly. The nobles leaned forward, eyes wide, some grinning, others waiting for blood. The princess leaned back in her throne, crossing her legs, her expression unreadable. But her eyes sparkled with more excitement than before. This was the moment she had wanted, to see the human not just show a weapon, but fight, bleed, and maybe die for her amusement. The guards on the edges of the pit raised their spears and slammed them against the stone, marking the start of the trial. Marcus stood tall, his grip firm on the weapon. The blue light pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. He knew he was outnumbered, outsized, and outmatched in strength. But he also knew something the aliens did not. Humans had learned to fight not with brute force, but with cunning, patience, and an unbreakable will. The crowd expected fear in his eyes. Instead, they saw fire. He raised the weapon, and the glow spread across the walls. The gladiators roared and charged, shaking the ground with every step. The chamber exploded with sound. The nobles screamed for blood, their voices a storm of chaos. The princess's golden eyes never left Marcus. She wanted to see if he would fall in the first strike or if he would do something no alien expected. Marcus lowered his stance, his eyes locked on the first gladiator rushing toward him. The world seemed to slow. His muscles tightened, and the weapon's hum grew louder, almost alive in his hands. He was ready. And then, in the final moment before impact, Marcus moved. Not with fear, not with hesitation, but with the speed and precision of someone who had been waiting his entire life for this test. The human had shown his hidden weapon, but now, for the first time, he was about to show the hidden power inside himself. The outcome was uncertain, but one thing was clear. The aliens would not forget what happened in that arena. The ground shook as the two gladiators closed in, their heavy weapons slicing through the air with a sound that made the nobles cheer louder. Dust rose in clouds, and the smell of sweat, metal, and burning torches filled the pit. Marcus stood with his strange weapon glowing in his hands, his eyes steady as he watched the first swing come down at him like a falling tree. The blade was massive, wide enough to split him in half, but Marcus rolled aside at the last second. The blade crashed into the ground, cracking the stone floor, sparks shooting into the air. Gasps and laughter echoed from the crowd, half of them impressed, half waiting for him to fail. The second gladiator came from behind, his armored foot slamming against Marcus's back as he swung his weapon in a brutal arc. Marcus stumbled forward, barely catching himself. The crowd roared, sensing blood, but Marcus recovered quickly, spinning around and activating the device again. With a sharp hiss, the weapon extended, doubling in size, the blue glow spreading across the walls of the pit. The light hit the aliens' armored faces, making them hesitate for just a heartbeat. That pause was all Marcus needed. He struck low, aiming not at their armor, but at the joint of the leg where the plates overlapped. A crack of energy burst as the blade connected, and the gladiator howled, stumbling back with a limp. The audience exploded with noise, some screaming in shock, others hissing in anger. The princess leaned forward on her throne, her golden eyes wide and glowing. She whispered something under her breath, but no one around her could hear. Her heart was racing with the thrill of what she was seeing. No one had ever touched her gladiators before. No one had ever made them bleed in front of her. Yet here was a single human, smaller, weaker, and alone, standing against two monsters twice his size. The injured gladiator roared and came at Marcus with wild rage. His swings were heavy, reckless, meant to crush. Marcus dodged again and again, each blow shattering stone and sending cracks across the arena floor. The second gladiator, seeing his chance, moved in from the side, trapping Marcus between them. The human's chest rose and fell, sweat dripping down his face, but his eyes burned brighter with each second. He waited, steps careful, letting their rage blind them. When both gladiators swung at the same time, Marcus dropped to his knees, sliding across the dust. Their massive weapons collided with each other, the sound deafening as sparks flew. The impact rattled the entire pit. The crowd gasped in disbelief. Marcus twisted and struck upward, his glowing blade slicing across the second gladiator's arm. A roar of pain shook the chamber as alien blood sprayed across the stone. The council chamber fell into chaos. Nobles screamed at each other, some demanding the human's death, others shouting to let him finish. The guards gripped their weapons tighter, unsure whether to leap into the pit or wait for orders. The princess lifted her hand, and the hall fell silent again. Her eyes never left Marcus. She wanted to see how far he could go. This was no longer just a trial. It was becoming a spectacle, something greater than she had expected. The gladiators, both injured, circled Marcus again. Their steps were slower now, their breaths harsh and heavy. But their fury had not cooled. It had only grown hotter. They raised their weapons once more, ready to crush the human no matter the cost. Marcus tightened his grip, his arm trembling slightly from the strain, but his mind was sharp. He remembered the words of his old commander back on Earth. A human wins not by being stronger, but by being smarter. Use the enemy's weight against them. Those words echoed in his head now, giving him clarity. When the first gladiator charged, Marcus did not move aside. He ran forward, straight toward him. The nobles gasped, thinking he had lost his mind. But at the last instant, Marcus dropped low, sliding between the alien's legs and stabbing upward with the glowing weapon. The blade pierced through the thinner armor under the gladiator's chest. The alien screamed, stumbling forward and crashing face first into the ground, the arena shaking as dust exploded upward. The crowd was silent for a heartbeat, stunned at what they had just seen. Then chaos erupted. Some screamed for Marcus's death, others shouted in awe. The princess gripped the armrest of her throne so tightly that the stone cracked under her fingers. Her heart raced faster. The human had just brought one of her best warriors down. The last gladiator bellowed with rage. His eyes burned with fury, his armored plates rattling as he raised his weapon for a final, crushing blow. Marcus turned to face him, his chest heaving, his clothes torn and stained with sweat and alien blood. He looked small under the shadow of the massive warrior, but his stance was unbroken. The alien swung with all his strength, the blade rushing down like a storm. Marcus lifted his weapon, the blue glow flaring brighter than ever. The two weapons collided, a burst of light filling the arena, shaking the stones and sending a shockwave through the crowd. For a moment, nothing could be seen through the dust and energy. Then silence fell. As the smoke cleared, the last gladiator was on his knees, his weapon shattered, his armor cracked. Marcus stood above him, his glowing blade pressed against the alien's throat. His chest rose and fell heavily, but his eyes were steady. The chamber was frozen. No one spoke. Even the nobles who had screamed for his death were silent, their eyes wide with disbelief. Slowly, Marcus lowered his weapon, the glow fading as he deactivated it. The gladiator collapsed onto the ground, defeated but alive. The human had shown mercy. The princess stood from her throne, her golden eyes blazing with something new, respect. Her voice rang clear through the chamber. He has proven it. The silence broke with a roar of voices, some furious, others in awe. The guards looked at each other, unsure of what to do. But Marcus did not care. He had survived the test. He had shown them that a human was not weak, not fragile, but something they had never expected. He looked up at the princess, and for the first time, he saw her smile not with mockery, but with true admiration. And deep in his heart, Marcus knew this was only the beginning of something far more dangerous. The arena floor was broken, cracked with deep lines where the massive weapons of the gladiators had smashed down. Dust still floated in the air, glowing under the blue light of Marcus's weapon. The nobles who filled the seats around the pit had fallen into silence, their earlier chants swallowed by shock. They had expected the human to be crushed, broken in front of them, but instead he was standing tall, chest rising and falling with heavy breaths, while both gladiators lay defeated at his feet. His body was bruised, his arms ached, but his spirit was unshaken. Every eye in the chamber was on him, and in that moment, Marcus felt the truth. He had proven something, though he wasn't sure what price would follow. The princess stood from her throne, her golden eyes fixed on him. Her expression was unreadable, but the way her lips curved hinted at something close to satisfaction. She raised her hand, and the nobles finally broke into noise, half of them cheering in disbelief, the other half roaring in anger. "He cheated!" one shouted. "A trick of human machines!" yelled another. Others leaned forward, their voices trembling with excitement. "No one has ever beaten the gladiators. He fights like a storm." The chamber shook with clashing opinions, but the princess's voice cut through it like a blade. "Enough!" The hall went still. Her eyes never left Marcus. He has fought. He has survived. He has done what no outsider has ever done. Her words made the air heavy. Even the guards standing around the pit shifted uneasily, gripping their weapons as if unsure whether to honor her command or strike the human down anyway. Marcus stood in the center of the pit, his weapon still glowing faintly. He knew the danger was not over. The trial might be complete, but the hatred in the eyes of many nobles promised that his life was still hanging on a thread. The princess tilted her head, her gaze sharp and curious. "Tell me, human," she called down to him, her voice echoing across the chamber. "What drives you? You are smaller than them, weaker than them, yet you stand while they fall. What power lives inside you that makes this possible?" Her words were not mocking this time. They carried real curiosity, almost hunger. The nobles leaned forward, waiting to hear what he would say. Marcus wiped the sweat from his forehead with his forearm, his chest heaving as he looked up at her. His voice was rough but strong. "It isn't size that wins. It isn't strength alone. It's will. It's the mind. Humans don't stop, even when the odds say we should. That is our weapon." His words rippled through the chamber. Some nobles hissed in disgust, shaking their heads. Others murmured to each other, their faces pale as though a dangerous truth had just been revealed. The princess's eyes gleamed brighter, her lips parting slightly as she let out a soft laugh. "Will, mind, stubbornness." She repeated the words slowly, tasting them as if they were something new. Her golden gaze burned into him, and for a moment Marcus felt as if she was seeing more than just his words. She was seeing his soul. The silence broke suddenly when one of the elder council members rose from his seat. His robes were heavy with jewels, his voice deep and cold. "This is not acceptable. He is an intruder. He is dangerous. If we let this human live, he will spread rebellion and poison among us." His hand pointed directly at Marcus, his long fingers trembling with fury. He must be executed now, before his defiance spreads. The chamber erupted again. Some shouted for his death, others for his protection. Guards stepped forward, their spears lowering toward Marcus in the pit. He gripped his weapon tighter, his body tensing for the fight he knew might come. The princess did not sit down. She raised her hand again, but this time her voice was sharper, louder. "No." The word rang across the chamber, silencing even the guards. Her golden eyes flashed, and her presence filled the hall with authority. "This human has proven himself in combat. To kill him now would be cowardice. He has earned the right to stand." Her words shook the nobles, who erupted again in shouts of disagreement. The elder council member's face twisted with rage. "You protect him because you are fascinated by him. This is weakness, princess. You will doom us all." His voice cracked with anger, but the princess did not falter. She stared him down until he sank back into his seat, though his eyes still burned with hatred. Marcus watched all of this from the pit, his mind racing. He had won the fight, but the war inside this chamber was far from over. He could see it in their eyes. Half of them wanted him dead, the other half wanted to use him. Either way, his life was no longer his own. He tightened his grip on his weapon and glanced back at the princess. For reasons he could not explain, he trusted her more than the others, though he knew trusting her might be just as dangerous as trusting his enemies. But in her eyes, he saw something none of the others had. A strange light, almost like admiration, or maybe even respect. The princess slowly descended the steps of her throne, her robe flowing behind her like liquid silver. The guards looked at each other nervously, unsure if they should stop her, but none dared. She stepped closer to the edge of the pit, looking down at Marcus as though he were the most fascinating creature she had ever seen. "You have shown your weapon," she said softly, so only those nearest could hear. "But I want to see what else you can show. I want to know what lies beyond strength and machines. You will not leave this place yet, human. Your trials are only beginning." The words carried a double edge. They promised survival, but also more danger. Marcus stood silent, staring back at her, his mind spinning with what she meant. Around him, the nobles whispered, some furious, some thrilled, while the guards kept their spears pointed, waiting for the next command. The chamber was alive with tension, and Marcus knew that whatever path had just opened, it was leading him deeper into their world, deeper into a game he could not escape. And though exhaustion pressed heavy on his body, a fire burned stronger in his chest. He had faced monsters and survived. He had caught the eye of a princess. Now, he would have to prove himself again, and this time, the stakes would be even higher. The chamber emptied slowly after the battle, but whispers did not stop. The nobles left their seats in clusters, their voices rising in sharp tones of anger and fear. Some were convinced Marcus was too dangerous to be left alive. Others whispered about his strange courage, wondering if humans were more than weak creatures after all. The air was heavy with suspicion. Every glance at Marcus felt like a blade pressed against his back. He could see the hatred burning in the eyes of many, and he knew that even if the princess had spared him today, the council was not finished with him. High above, in the private balconies, council elders gathered in secret conversation. Their long robes brushed the stone floors as they leaned close together. Their words were sharp and bitter. "He has broken our tradition," one said. "The gladiators have never been defeated." Another hissed, "If the people learn of this, they will question us. We cannot allow him to leave this place alive." The eldest, his voice cold and slow, gave the final command. "The princess may play with her pet human, but when night falls, he dies. Quietly, without honor." The princess overheard more than they knew. Her golden eyes narrowed as she listened from the shadows of her private chamber. She had seen the fire in Marcus's eyes, the way he fought not for glory but for survival, the way he refused to bend even when surrounded. Something in him was different. Something in him called to her curiosity in a way no alien ever had. She could not explain why, but the thought of his execution unsettled her. Still, she knew the council's power. If she moved too openly, they might turn against her too. Meanwhile, Marcus was led down long halls carved from stone, his wrists bound with glowing cuffs that hummed with energy. Guards pushed him forward, their insect-like faces unreadable. The corridors were cold, lit by green torches that flickered with shadows. As he walked, he thought of Earth, his home, far away. He thought of the mission that had brought him here, and how quickly everything had changed. He had stepped into this place as a prisoner, and now he stood as a dangerous figure in their eyes. A threat. He did not know if the princess had saved him or trapped him in a deeper game, but he knew one truth. His life balanced on a blade's edge. The guards shoved him into a stone cell, its walls damp and marked with strange carvings. The cuffs around his wrists tightened, sending sharp pain into his arms. He dropped onto the hard floor, breathing heavily. From the shadows of the cell, whispers echoed. Other prisoners, alien faces with tired eyes, watched him from their corners. None spoke directly to him, but he could feel their curiosity. They had seen what he did in the arena. He was not just another prisoner to them. He was something more, though he did not yet know if they saw him as hope or danger. As night fell, the council's plan began to move. 4 masked assassins slipped into the dark corridors, their bodies cloaked in black, their weapons dripping with poison. They moved like shadows, silent and deadly. Their orders were clear. Kill the human before dawn, make it look like an accident, and erase the memory of his defiance. But the princess could not sleep. She stood on her balcony, the night air cool against her silver skin. Her heart raced as she thought of Marcus. Against every law, every tradition, every warning in her mind, she decided to act. She left her chambers quietly, her long robe whispering across the stone floors, and slipped into the hidden passages only she knew. Her steps were swift, her breath steady. She had chosen to protect the human, even if it meant standing against her own people. In the prison cell, Marcus stirred. His instincts screamed danger before he even heard the soft scrape of footsteps. His eyes snapped open. From the shadows, the assassins appeared, their blades glowing faintly green with poison. One raised his weapon, ready to plunge it into Marcus's chest. Marcus rolled across the floor, the blade striking where he had been lying. He kicked upward, knocking the assassin back. The other 3 rushed forward. Bound, tired, and unarmed, Marcus fought with raw instinct, using his body like a weapon. He slammed one assassin against the wall, but another slashed his arm, leaving a burning line of pain. Before the killing blow could come, the door to the cell burst open. A blinding light filled the room, and there she stood, the princess. Her golden eyes burned with fury, her voice sharp as steel. "Enough!" she commanded. The assassins froze for a breath, shocked at her sudden arrival. Marcus stared at her in disbelief, his chest heaving. She stepped inside, her presence filling the cell like fire. "He is under my protection," she said coldly. "Anyone who touches him will answer to me." The assassins hesitated, but only for a moment. "The council ordered his death," one hissed. The princess stepped closer, her eyes flashing. "And I am the blood of the throne. Disobey me, and you will wish for death." Her voice shook the walls with its power. Slowly, unwillingly, the assassins lowered their blades and melted back into the shadows, their mission undone by her command. Marcus sat against the wall, his body aching, blood dripping from his wound. He looked up at her, his eyes filled with confusion. "Why?" he asked in a hoarse whisper. The princess knelt beside him, her gaze steady, her hand brushing against the glowing cuffs to unlock them. The chains fell with a clatter, and his arms were free. Her voice softened, though the fire in her tone remained. "Because you have proven something no one else ever has, and because I am not done with you yet." For a moment, they stared at each other in silence. In her golden eyes, Marcus saw not cruelty, not mockery, but something dangerous and fragile: trust. He realized then that his fight was no longer just about survival. It had become something larger, something tied to her and the power she held. The chamber outside still echoed with whispers of death and betrayal, but inside the cell, in that moment, a fragile bond had formed between human and alien, a bond strong enough to change everything that was yet to come. The halls of the council fortress were dark, lit only by the dim glow of crystal torches. The princess moved quickly through the passages, her silver robe flowing behind her. Marcus followed close, his footsteps quiet but heavy with the weight of exhaustion. His body still ached from the arena, his arm burned from the assassin's poisoned blade, but the fire in his chest kept him moving. He did not know where she was leading him, only that she had saved him when no one else would. Every corner they turned, every shadow they passed, Marcus expected guards to appear and block their way. The fortress seemed alive with whispers. The nobles who had left the chamber hours ago had spread the news. Some said the human was unstoppable. Others said he was cursed. The council had ordered his death, but now he was walking the halls beside the princess herself. That sight alone would shake the empire if anyone else saw it. Marcus's eyes scanned every hallway, his hands tight around the weapon he had managed to keep hidden. He could feel the tension in the air, as if the entire fortress was holding its breath. They came to a narrow stairway carved into the stone, leading down into the lower tunnels. The princess moved with certainty, her golden eyes glowing faintly in the dark. She knew these passages well, secret routes built long ago for escape or betrayal. Marcus asked in a low voice, "Why are you doing this? You risk everything for me. Why not let me die?" The princess paused, turning to face him. For a moment, her expression softened, because if they kill you tonight, it will not just be your death. It will be mine too. I gave you the trial. I demanded proof, and you gave it. If you die now, everything I saw in you will be erased. Her words struck him deeply. He realized that she was not saving him out of kindness alone. She was saving herself too, her pride, her curiosity, maybe even her hope. Marcus nodded silently, understanding without needing more words. They continued down the stairs, the air growing colder, the walls damp with water seeping from deep underground. Behind them, faint echoes of footsteps followed. The assassins had not given up. Their shadows slid along the walls, patient and deadly, waiting for the right moment to strike again. Marcus felt it before he heard it, the way the air shifted, the faint scrape of steel against stone. He stopped suddenly, pulling the princess behind him just as a blade slashed through the air where her head had been. Sparks flew as steel scraped the wall. The assassins had caught up. Marcus shoved her forward. "Run!" he shouted, raising his weapon as the blue light burst alive again. The narrow tunnel echoed with the sound of battle as blades clashed. The assassins were fast, their movements sharp as snakes. Marcus ducked, blocked, struck, his arms heavy but unrelenting. He fought not for honor now, not for survival alone, but to keep her alive. The princess hesitated only a moment before drawing a short, curved blade from her robe, her golden eyes blazing with fury. She struck at one assassin, her blade singing through the air. The clash of steel rang like thunder in the close tunnel. Together, human and alien fought side by side. Marcus's strength and stubbornness met her speed and precision. The assassins were skilled, but they had not expected resistance like this. Two fell quickly, their bodies collapsing to the damp stone floor. The last two pulled back, their cloaks swirling as they retreated into the shadows. Marcus stood panting, his arm bleeding freely now, his breath ragged. The princess looked at him, her chest rising and falling, her face fierce. "You saved me," she said, almost surprised at the words leaving her lips. Marcus gave a weak smile. "You saved me first. Now we're even." But they both knew it was not over. The council would send more, and the fortress was crawling with eyes loyal to the elders. The princess turned sharply and led him through another passage, this one ending at a massive door of rusted iron. She pressed her palm against a panel, and the door creaked open to reveal the outside world. Cold night air rushed in, carrying the smell of rain and the distant sound of storms. Marcus inhaled deeply, the taste of freedom sharp on his tongue, but he knew it was not true freedom. It was escape, fragile and temporary. The two stepped into the night. The fortress towered behind them, glowing faintly in the darkness like a monster watching from the hills. The princess pulled her robe tighter and glanced at Marcus. "We cannot go far tonight. They will search every road, but there is a place outside the city, hidden in the cliffs. No one dares to go there." Marcus nodded, gripping his weapon tighter. "Then that's where we go." As they moved into the forest at the edge of the fortress grounds, Marcus felt something shift inside him. He was no longer just a prisoner, no longer just a fighter in someone else's game. The bond between him and the princess had grown stronger, tested by danger and blood. He looked at her walking ahead, her silver skin glowing faintly in the moonlight, and he realized she was no longer just a captor or a royal curiosity. She was becoming something else, an ally, maybe even a partner. But deep in the shadows of the trees, unseen eyes watched. A council scout followed at a distance, carrying the news back to the elders. The human had escaped, and worse, the princess was with him. The council's whispers would soon become open fury, and the hunt would begin. Marcus felt the weight of it pressing on his shoulders, but he also felt the fire in his chest grow stronger. He had survived the arena, the council's hatred, and the assassins in the dark. Now he had something new, a reason to fight beyond himself. And as the night swallowed them, he knew the next trial would be even greater than all that had come before. The night was silent, except for the crunch of their footsteps on the forest floor. The princess led Marcus deeper into the wilderness, the glow of the fortress fading behind them. The air was sharp with the scent of wet leaves and storm clouds gathering above. Marcus kept glancing over his shoulder, every sound of snapping branches making his hand tighten around his weapon. He knew the council would not rest. Assassins had already tried once, and they would come again. But beside him, the princess moved with steady confidence, her golden eyes fixed on the path ahead. She did not look afraid. After hours of walking, they reached the cliffs she had spoken of. Jagged rocks rose into the sky, their faces scarred by centuries of storms. At the base was a hidden cave, entrance half covered by vines and stone. She slipped inside, her robe brushing against the rocks, and Marcus followed close behind. The air inside was cool and damp, carrying the faint sound of dripping water. Torches lit by ancient oil still burned faintly on the walls, long forgotten by others. It was not a palace, not a fortress, but for the first time since his capture, Marcus felt a small measure of safety. They settled in the cave. Marcus leaned against the stone wall, his body aching from battles, his arms still wrapped in bloodied cloth. The princess sat across from him, her eyes studying him with the same curious light she had shown since the moment she demanded proof of him. The silence stretched until Marcus finally broke it. "What happens now? I've fought, I've survived, I've proven myself, but they'll never stop. You know that." His voice was tired but steady. The princess lowered her gaze, her fingers tracing the stone floor. "The council fears you because you are different. They fear what they cannot control. They will not stop until you are gone." She looked up again, her golden eyes sharp. "But I have seen something they refuse to see, strength that is not in size but in spirit. You should have died in that arena, yet you did not. You should have been killed in your cell, yet you live. That is proof enough." Marcus gave a faint smile, shaking his head. Proof for you, maybe. But for them, I'm just a threat. He leaned back, closing his eyes for a moment. I can't fight a whole empire. His words were heavy with truth. He had fought 2 giants, survived assassins, and escaped the fortress, but the weight of an entire alien council felt impossible. The princess's voice softened, but it carried a strange strength. You are not alone anymore. Marcus opened his eyes and looked at her. For a moment, the distance between human and alien seemed to vanish. She was no longer just the royal who had challenged him, but someone who had chosen to stand beside him against her own people. He saw the risk in her eyes, the danger she had brought upon herself, yet she did not waver. Before he could speak, a sound echoed from the cave's entrance, the scrape of stone, the crack of a twig. Marcus jumped to his feet, weapon glowing as he raised it toward the shadows. The princess rose too, her blade already in hand. From the darkness, 3 council guards stepped forward, their armor glinting in the faint torchlight. Their spears hummed with energy, their faces hard with duty. Behind them came a 4th figure, the elder who had demanded Marcus's death. His jeweled robes brushed against the floor as he entered, his eyes burning with hatred. You cannot run, human, the elder spat. You cannot hide, princess. You betray your blood, your people, for this creature. His voice echoed through the cave. Surrender him now, and perhaps your life will be spared. The princess stepped in front of Marcus without hesitation, her golden eyes blazing. No, she said firmly. He has earned his life. He has earned respect. If you cannot see it, then you are blind. Her voice shook the walls of the cave. The elder's face twisted with rage. Then you are no princess of ours. You are a traitor. He raised his hand and the guards lunged forward. The battle was fierce in the narrow cave. Spears clashed against Marcus's weapon, the blue glow lighting the walls as sparks flew. The princess moved like fire, her blade flashing, striking with precision. Marcus fought with every ounce of strength left in him, his arms trembling but unbroken. One guard fell, then another, their armor cracking under the force of human will and alien steel. The elder shouted orders, his voice shrill with fury, but his guards could not match the fire of the human and the princess together. At last, Marcus pinned the last guard against the stone, his glowing blade inches from the alien's throat. The elder stumbled back, his jeweled robes torn, his eyes wide with fear for the first time. The princess stepped closer, her voice cold and sharp. This human has proven more than you ever could. Twice his size? No. Twice his spirit, and that is something you will never break. The elder trembled, his mouth opening and closing, but no words came. Marcus lowered his weapon, not striking the final blow. The princess looked at him in surprise, but he only shook his head. Killing him makes us no better than them, he said simply. His words hung heavy in the air, stronger than any blade. The elder and his surviving guard fled into the night, their footsteps fading into the storm. The cave was silent again, except for the sound of rain beginning to fall outside. Marcus dropped to one knee, exhaustion finally pulling at him. The princess came to his side, her golden eyes soft for the first time. She touched his shoulder gently. You could have killed him. You chose not to. Marcus looked up at her, his face pale but his eyes steady. I didn't come here to destroy. I came here to survive. Maybe even to show them we are more than they think. The princess held his gaze, and in that moment, something unspoken passed between them. Not just respect, not just alliance, but the fragile beginning of trust, strong enough to change worlds. The storm outside grew louder, thunder rolling across the cliffs, but inside the cave there was a quiet peace. Human and alien sat side by side, their bodies weary but their spirits unbroken. Whatever came next, Marcus knew this was not the end. It was the beginning of something greater, something dangerous, something impossible, and for the first time, he welcomed it.